Very often in the Gospels, when Jesus calls someone to follow him, that person, the Gospel says, gets up and follows Jesus. That's the formula that's used. So-and-so got up and followed Jesus. My favorite instance of this in the Gospels is when Jesus calls the apostle Matthew. Probably the only reason why that speaks to me is because we share the same name. So whenever I hear that Matthew got up and followed Jesus, it's a reminder to me to strengthen my own resolve and my own following of Jesus. But that's the formula that's used. Jesus calls, he says, follow me, and the person gets up and follows him. In today's gospel, the reverse happens. And it's the only time in the Gospels, I think, that this really happens, where it's not the person who gets up and follows Jesus, but it says Jesus gets up and follows this man. And the man in question is the royal official whose daughter has died. It says, and it uses the same wording, he got up and followed him. Who's following who? Well, in this circumstance, it's Jesus getting up and following this man. And not only Jesus, but a crew of his disciples are following this man. So you have to think, what was it about this man, this royal official, and what was it about what he said that caused God, first of all, to take notice, to listen, and secondly, what did he say to get the second person of the Trinity to get up and follow him instead of the other way around? What is it in what he said? Well, what does he say? He says, "My daughter has just died, but come lay your hand on her and she will live." So basically what this man is saying, what he's acknowledging, is that this situation, Lord, is completely dead. Like it's beyond dead, literally. It is a completely hopeless situation, and that's why I'm calling on you. And because of that, Jesus' response is, I'm listening. And I will follow you, because it just so happens that God specializes in hopeless situations. In situations where the person is forced to, or maybe not even forced to, admit, God, without me, without you, I'm nothing. Without you, I can do nothing. If you don't come to rescue me, Lord, this game is over. And it's that attitude that causes the second person of the Trinity to get up and to follow that person. Now, I want you to notice one thing. So just because Jesus gets up and follows that person, and that's an idea I think most of us would like, we'd like Jesus to follow us and the rest of the apostles. Yeah, it's my show, it's my prerogative, it's my agenda, follow me, get behind me. Right? So just because he has Jesus doing that, it doesn't mean that this man is in total control. Doesn't mean that he has God wrapped around his little finger, as it were. Because as you know, even though Jesus is following this man, okay, let's go to your house and let's do this miracle for your daughter, Jesus takes a detour. He doesn't go to the house right away, he takes a detour. He performs another miracle for another person, the hemorrhaging woman in today's gospel, which is another sermon for another day. But all this to say that even though Jesus was following this man in lockstep behind him, it doesn't mean that this man had complete control over what Jesus did. At the end of the day, Jesus was working on his timetable, the perfect timetable, God's timetable. And you know, that's, I think, a challenge that we all have for ourselves is, yeah, we like to give God control of every aspect of our life. But every once in a while, we're in the habit, at least I am, of taking control back. You know that scene in the Gospels where Jesus is crowned with thorns? It says that the soldiers crowned him with thorns and placed a scepter in his right hand, the scepter of reed, the reed stick, which is a sign, a symbol of authority, of power, of majesty. And it says that the soldiers kept taking the reed and hitting Jesus on the head and putting it back in his hand. Taking the reed, hitting him on the head, and putting it back in his hand. This whole evil play of sticking the reed of power in his hand, but then taking it back again, I think is a pattern that all of us at one time or many times in our life, we fall into. Yeah, Lord, here's the power, here's the authority, do with my life as you will. But then at certain times, I feel like taking the power back. I feel like taking the control back. It's never a good idea. It's always a good idea from the outset to the very end to give the Lord the power, the authority, because it's his timetable that's perfect. So, just by way of summary today, Jesus in today's gospel does something he never does before, and it's, well, at least as we're told, he follows someone. Usually it's the other way around. Come follow me, and the person follows Jesus. In today's gospel, it's the other way around. It says Jesus got up, he arose and followed him. Why? Because this man had the right attitude. He had the right attitude, the type of attitude that gets Jesus moving, as it were, in someone's life. And that's the attitude that says, Lord, without you, I'm completely hopeless, I'm completely done. Without your providence, I am nothing.